Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. It is part 2 of the monthly Q&A series, and Steve is trying to avoid me because we've just answered a whole bunch of questions and he's really looking forward to the second bunch of questions. So, how you going? It's been good. We've done a bunch of questions, more questions to go, and you're still in your shed. So if you
here, haven't escaped.
Yep. If you missed part 1, you don't know what the hell's going on here. It's Steve's shed instead of his usual, sort of set area because of a bit of construction work going on at Steve's place. Not with these tools, but with other tools. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get into the questions.
Today's video is sponsored by Gigabyte and their brand new range of Radeon RX 6700 XT graphics cards, including the Gaming OC and Aorus Elite. The Gaming OC is a high quality yet minimalistic graphics card, whereas the Aorus Elite adds a little extra bling with its RGB Fusion 2.0 lighting. Both models pack large triple slot WindForce 3X coolers featuring direct touch heat pipes, a full-size aluminium backplate, and they're overclocked out of the box for maximum gaming performance. So for more information, please check the link in the video description.
Next question. I really enjoyed reading this question, adding it to this group, so I'm glad we can talk about this again. A highly credible website used for comparing GPUs and CPUs have reported that Team Blue and Team Green's shortcomings are their lack of availability to respond to Team Red's marketing BS machine. Do you think marketing in its own right can make a metaphorical turd sell, even if it's a complete failure and is barely fit for purpose? What do you think?
Well, there is a lot of credibility to that claim because I remember very, very vividly when AMD had their own FX branded turds, and their marketing was so superior to Intel's that they were just able to capture the market, maintain market share through that, 5-6 year period. And they just sold like hotcakes because of, their marketing machine. AMD is actually known for their extremely good marketing. Nvidia probably has a lot to learn from AMD. The green team has a lot to learn from the red team. I think Nvidia could... So go on.
I was just saying, I think it was really impressive marketing when AMD, for example, executives were tweeting about how they found it so easy to buy their new GPUs and betting people on Twitter about how easy it was to buy their cards that people were struggling to buy. That was really clever marketing. So I agree that their marketing machine is really good.
Clever, but it's also that comes from a really deep experience, and you have to have been around for a long time to pull something like that off. That's not something that you just do overnight. And
generally it requires the company to be in a really dominant market position where they can hire the best talent to work on their marketing. And in these situations, Nvidia being sort of the low cost option for people that don't want GPUs. That's why we see on the Steam market share survey that AMD has 95% of the market. So
the 5700 XT heavily outsold the 2080 series. It was just although it's a turd in comparison, it was just marketed so well that Nvidia just simply could not compete with that one product that AMD had. That they turned into 2 products, the 6700 XT, another raving success, and the 5500 XT. Where'd that thing come from? That was really hard to predict, the success of that, particularly the 4GB model, which made a lot of sense in the current market given the trends of VRAM heading downwards. That's right. 8GB, 16GB unnecessary. It was the marketing team they really did a good job of justifying the need for 32GB of RAM with that card. They're really helping gamers leverage their full system. That's AMD.
Yeah, I think Nvidia needs to come out and maybe talk more about things that they, we didn't hear a lot about ray tracing and DLSS over the last couple of years. I mean, those were really big features. So it was weird. What do
they offer?
Yeah, it was weird to me that they don't talk about things like that, and they're focused on things like VRAM, like how they have less VRAM. Like you don't market that you have less VRAM than your competitor. That doesn't make any sense. So I think Nvidia needs to get on it.
Yeah, like if Nvidia made like a screenshot capturing feature, they'd really want to advertise that and let people know about it over and over and over again, like it's the bee's knees. But you just don't see that sort of marketing from Nvidia.
All right, next question is, how often do you get dead/stuck pixels in the monitors you review? How do you deal with them? So I think at this point I've probably reviewed 80, 100 monitors over the years. I think I've had a dead pixel in one or two of them. So I'm not quite sure how common that would be amongst, dead pixel rates. That would be quite high of a defect rate, actually, to have like one or two in every 100 have dead pixels. But there was also like different types of dead pixels. And often, well, I think on one of the units that I had, it wasn't actually a dead pixel. It was like a bit of dirt was in between the outer panel and the LCD layer. And because it's all glued together, you can never get that piece out. So I think that would have been like a flaw in the manufacturing process or the assembly process that caused that. And often you can tell that when you like look through a microscope or a magnifying glass really close, and you'll see that it's not actually the entire pixel that's just switched off. It's like a weird shape over the top of one of the pixels. So I think that was the case with one of the monitors. Obviously, it's still effectively a dead pixel because it's not really fixable. And then the other one would have been like a dead subpixel or a dead pixel there. And yeah, I haven't heard too many good things about the success rates of those like dead pixel refreshing tools where you like cycle through colors or where you like massage the screen. Generally speaking, I think that you should attempt to return any products that have dead pixels. I know different companies have different policies, but in my opinion, if you're buying a monitor, having even a single dead pixel is completely unacceptable. So especially for a high-end monitor. So yeah, returning them tends to be the way to go, depending on what your warranty allows.
All right, next one here, Tim. I browse and debate frequently on various Facebook groups where people come to get help building spec lists, and I have found that people recommend ATX boards in abundance. Why don't micro ATX or mATX get more love from manufacturers, case manufacturers, and customers, especially gamers? And Tim wrote, this was a much longer question I cut short. So sorry, that's why we didn't read your full question. Well, I guess the answer is like, there's not a huge, starting from the very start and thinking about this sort of logically, how much of a space reduction is there from an ATX case to an mATX case? It's not a lot. Like
Probably
think about most.
Like that much? That much in height, which is the difference in board height.
So what's the advantage of that? Is it a cost saving thing? You're saving 10% or whatever, or is it just that it takes up less space? Because the real estate, the footprint of the case on the desk or wherever is very similar. It's just there's a height difference, but it'll fit most. They're fairly interchangeable. So I think that's probably part of the reason. It's just there's really no big advantage. It's just less convenient because then you're stuck in that to save your 10% or whatever it may be, what I would deem insignificant amount of space, you've then limited yourself to that form factor. So people aren't willing to invest big money in a case that has a very select range of motherboards, and then motherboard manufacturers aren't willing to invest time in making high quality mATX boards that aren't going to sell in volume. So it just comes down to a thing where there's too many form factors, and these two happen to be very similar in terms of size. And I guess most customers aren't interested in the drawbacks of missing out on a few expansion slots and whatever else on those boards. And then if you really want to go small, there's now mini ITX, which wasn't a thing back when mATX was a thing. So, you had those two slightly different size form factors, but then it's like, do you either want to go for a small computer or a normal computer? So I think that's all of those things.
Yeah, it's basically stuck in the middle between ITX and your standard ATX. It's kind of the standard mid-range product problem where you either go for the standard normal size, or if you're building something that was more compact, then you go all the way down to ITX. And when you're stuck with the middle product, it gets not much love and attention. So I think that
yes, but the problem, it's that, you're right, but it's exacerbated because the middle product isn't really in the middle.
Yeah,
it's like it's between them, but it's so close to one product that it's like,
exactly.
You'd go the full hog, surely. So yeah. I think that's why. I know there's a lot of people that really like their mATX builds, but I would say, despite the fact that you may like them, I think that's the reason why they're not popular, is because people just go, what the hell, I'll just get an ATX system. Crystal Ball Tim, I have a question here for you. I've wanted to get this off my chest for a while.
Oh.
It goes something like this. Is the AM4 platform, given the current climate, still worth upgrading to, or is it better to hold off for AM5 and hope for supply issues to improve? Is AM4 officially at its end of life?
So it's not officially at its end of life because AMD hasn't, as far as I'm aware, made any official statements about the future of their motherboard platform. So I think both of us believe that it's likely to be at its end of life. I think it really depends whether we see AMD go straight for Zen 4 or whether they maybe do like a Zen 3 Plus or something, which may happen on AM4. But again, it's very up in the air. And certainly we're not expecting too much more longevity out of the platform. At the same time, Intel's in the exact same position. So their platform has supported 10th and 11th gen CPUs, and we're expecting Alder Lake to require new motherboards, new sockets. So both brands are in the same position. So I guess it depends. If you need a CPU upgrade right now, then you're kind of stuck in the situation where your choice of two platforms with not much life left in them. So that's kind of just the situation. It'd be a different discussion if we're talking about AMD, with life in its platform over the next few years and Intel not having any life or vice versa. But yeah, it's kind of just that situation. So if you've been on AM4 for a while, I'd probably say it's probably not worth buying another motherboard. Just stick with what you've got. And again, it depends what you're coming from. If you're coming from like let's say a Haswell processor, and you've just seen Steve's driver overhead video and you're like, wow, I really should think about upgrading my CPU this generation, then yeah, you're going to get a decent performance uplift, a very decent performance uplift going to something modern. And even then, we don't know what the next generation look like. I mean, you're talking about AM5 here. Is that going to have the same long lifespan that AM4 had, where we saw 3 or 4 generations on that platform? AMD might switch to only having 2 generations on AM5. Maybe they learnt some lessons about this gen and didn't like what they saw. So it with all that stuff up in the air, I think it's just, make the choice based around what your hardware looks like right now and whether you're happy with performance. All right, so next question here was asked after we were temporarily shadow banned from YouTube. So the previous Q&A series was before that happened. So I think there's been a couple of questions in our Patreon Floatplane accounts, people asking about this. So the question is, would you guys consider creating a second YouTube channel which you could use for content that doesn't fit with what you usually focus on, and use that as a backup channel in case the main one goes down, just to avoid being in a situation like this again? So that being the shadow ban situation. If not, do you have some other contingency plan? And we were asked this many times around the time that we were shadow banned, like, why don't you have a second channel? Why don't you use those alternative platforms like, Odyssey, and there's a couple of other ones. And the basic answer to this question is that we would be screwed regardless of the situation. If most of our audience is coming to our main channel, and then there was a bit of stuff on Odyssey and a bit of stuff on a backup channel, but the majority of the views were still coming on YouTube, as you would expect, being the dominant platform, people would come to your main channel, then we'd be faced with a significant viewership reduction regardless. So if our channel gets banned and we're forced onto a second channel, well, there goes 90% of our audience. And if we didn't have the second channel, well, there's 100% of our audience gone. So the differences aren't that significant to worth investing a whole ton into like a second channel, because we'd just be, the whole channel would be screwed either way. It's certainly not worth, especially with something like Odyssey. I know it's very easy to back up your YouTube library to a platform like that, but realistically, how many people are going to keep watching our content on an alternative platform when everyone's been used to watching it on YouTube? So we're kind of a slave to the platform in that way, in that we do have contingency plans for revenue. Like, we have a very diverse revenue stream, which helps just in case one of those things gets switched off. But if YouTube itself switches us off, then our contingency plans, none of them are really viable or make a lot of sense. It just wouldn't work, and would be in a world of pain either way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's all good and well to say, oh, you should jump on this platform, but if there's nobody on that platform or very few people, I might as well just upload them to a random forum. Like, you're just not going to, the viewer's not there.
Yeah, you may as well just start another channel. Like, if Hardware Unboxed is banned, you just make Hardware Unboxed 2, and you'd be in almost the exact same position as having a second channel on another platform.
Yeah, but you're on a platform where you have the potential to grow.
Yeah, that's right.
But what? Step back a bit. Let's. Well, okay. It's been 5 years that we've been on YouTube, and we've had one hiccup, and it was resolved inside of a week. Well, it was about 5 business days. So, obviously not a great situation, not ideal. It was a very stressful period for us. As Tim's been saying, there's nothing we can really do to mitigate that in the future, but it's happened one time in 5 years, and we don't expect this to be a growing trend where, we get shadow banned randomly. And it wasn't like a lot of people, conspiracies were starting. Why are they doing this to Hardware Unboxed? This happens to random channels all over YouTube, us just being another random channel. And it happened because they are constantly, it's the whole staying ahead of the game. They're updating their security methods. They're updating how things work to, try and keep up with people who are trying to take advantage of those systems for their own personal gain. And one thing that we've seen happen, I would say over the last year, was YouTube channels get hijacked, and then spam sort of sales type people or cryptocurrency stuff or whatever start uploading their crap to the channel to try and take advantage of they're hoping to catch even like 1% or less of that big channel's viewership because they can make money off them. And then so by shadow banning, YouTube has basically shut that down from being able to happen. But we had triggered one of their security systems by me going on holidays, which sucks and shouldn't happen. But, when they introduce a new system, it's not foolproof, and it triggered that hijack protocol. So they've had that in place to help protect creators, but it sort of backfired in our situation. But, had our channel been hijacked, we would much rather, not being able to put videos out than have some cryptocurrency crap put on our channel. We don't want to see that.
Yep.
So it was just unfortunate that it happened when we hadn't been hijacked. So anyway, as I said, one time in 5 years. Let's hope it doesn't happen ever again, but we're hoping to go another 5 years without that kind of incident. Let's see how we go. So anyway.
All right, next question here. The 3060 appears to be 7% more powerful than the 2060 Super with a similar TDP. If Nvidia weren't focused on ray tracing to market their products, a feature with dubious value in current mid-range products, do you think they would have re-refreshed Turing on TSMC 12nm to fill out the RTX 3000 line below the 3060 Ti? I've seen this sort of theory come up a few times about Nvidia potentially using a different node on lower-end products, but historically it's not really something they've done. Nvidia tends to almost always do a full top-to-bottom refresh whenever they've got a new product line come out. So we saw that with Pascal, where they go from, right up at the 1080 Ti all the way down to your GT 1030s built on a pretty similar process nodes. Only occasionally see like the very, very low-end products using like potentially a previous node or previous gen products. Whereas AMD is much more comfortable doing a mixture of high-end products on new architectures and nodes and older stuff like RX 580s, for example, filling out the lower end. So I'm sure Nvidia would have loved to have a situation where they've got 12nm products ready to go right now, but considering what they've done for generations, I highly doubt they would have done something like this. They always like doing a full refresh. All right, interesting question about the reviewing landscape coming up here. So obviously YouTube/the internet gets flooded with reviews anytime new hardware drops, but many of them appear biased or just questionable in general. My question is, do you believe these are more likely to be the result of inept reviewers or behind-the-scenes manipulation by marketing executives? If both, can you easily tell the difference? I think it's fairly easy to tell. I mean, it may not be easy to tell for general viewers, but for us, it's fairly easy to tell when something is like a marketing executive-led video, because marketing executives hate you talking about competitors' products in any way. So, for example, we've seen marketing briefs for, say, sponsored videos and some of the things that they require you to talk about, and it often says, do not talk about our competitors' products at all. So, for example, if we had Intel, for example, doing a sponsored video on their CPUs, they would say you can only compare this product to other Intel products. Do not talk about AMD. Do not show AMD products. Do not use them in the charts. Just talk about Intel and highlight like the advantages that our new generation can have versus our old generation. So if people take those deals, the result of them is very obvious. You'll see a review that normally would feature Intel and AMD processors and just has Intel processors in it, which is very questionable. But luckily, most of the time, those are flagged and highlighted as sponsored posts in the correct legal way that things should be done. So when this question asks, do you believe these biased or questionable reviews, which I'll be honest, I don't think many reviews, in my opinion, viewing a lot of them, are biased or questionable. I don't think it would be behind the scenes manipulation, because that would, you would have seen sponsored videos. You can see what they look like, and often it's very overt. And it's just not worth paying for a situation that's less, overt than that. Like making something appear slightly better than your competitor, is that worth spending thousands and thousands of dollars on? Probably not. So, do you have any thoughts on this general question?
Not too much more. I mean, I tend to disagree. Generally, when we release a review on a CPU or a GPU, when they all go live, I scurry around and see what my other favorite reviewers have said. Check out Steve from Gamers Nexus. So jump over and see Jared at Jared's Tech and Paul from Paul's Hardware and all those guys and see what they have to say, and if their results were different or if their opinions were different to mine or if they lined up. And I watch a whole heap of different reviews with these things, and I would say that most of them appear very unbiased and they're just trying to do the best job they possibly can. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. So I'm not sure, what reviewers you're talking about, and I don't really care, to be honest. Yeah, so I think in my experience, I would disagree with that. And I think, I'm not accusing this person who's asked this question, but I think some people get a bit caught up in, I disagree with that opinion, or, I don't like that, and sort of, therefore that's unbiased, or, you tested this game that heavily favors this company, or stuff like that. I think we need to just chill out a bit more, and as us reviewers often say, watch a whole heap of reviews and, do your research, watch at least, 3, 4, more if you can, and sort of see what they're all saying. Where they overlap and where they don't, and work out, because again, we've been saying for a long time now, we don't think ray tracing is a key selling point of these GPUs. We've gone over and over about it. We've explained why. We've gone in depth with that. But if you're like, no, I really like ray tracing, it's in this game Cyberpunk, and I like to turn it on there and it looks good, well, then you can completely ignore our comments on ray tracing. But that doesn't mean we're wrong on everything or we disagree with you on everything, but it's unlikely you're going to watch our opinions and 100% agree with them. So if you think that we haven't done a good job on something or it doesn't apply to you, then you can ignore that part of the review and just look at the data and compare that with someone else.
Yeah, that's right. A wrong opinion or a difference of opinion between you and a reviewer doesn't mean that reviewer is biased. And I think a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, a very small minority of people get caught up in sort of there's one way to review things, and that's like the gold unbiased method of reviewing, which isn't really true. There's many different ways you can approach a product review, and people testing things, so long as the testing is accurate and it's done in standard review practices, there's many different ways that you can test products. It's perfectly valid to only test a GPU in ray tracing benchmarks. That would be a ray tracing review of the card. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong or it's biased towards Nvidia because Nvidia's faster at ray tracing. It's just a different angle and a different take on the product. So, I find it frustrating and annoying when a lot of, I don't think this commenter is necessarily one of those people, but certainly you see it often on places like Reddit where people always talk about, they didn't test this or they didn't test this, so they're biased, when really they've just gone about their review in a different way. And ultimately it's an opinion, and opinions are rarely going to be biased, at least not in the way, where you're talking about like overt marketing manipulation and that sort of thing, which is generally fairly obvious. All right, next question. Do you ever wish manufacturers would cut back on the marketing and gamer designs? Couldn't that save some cost or possibly improve performance, looking at all the unique heatsink shapes and plastic covers? There'd still be a place for those type of designs, but it's not like clean designs plus possibly better value and performance aren't desirable. Yeah, it's definitely a good point, isn't it? If we could get GPUs without all that crazy RGB stuff and, fancy looking shrouds and all that, save a few dollars, and I'd probably prefer that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my answer to this question is sort of a yes and no type one, because I don't think I don't think it adds a whole lot of cost, at least in most instances. When it comes to motherboards, like, proper heat sinks opposed to like, visually appealing heat sinks, then sure, that can make a difference.
Yep.
And, big plastic IO shields and things like that, they're kind of dumb. But again, it's like the improve aesthetics of the motherboard. So yeah, I don't think it's too much of a value thing. I think it's more just, it's not the optimal. It's what, form over function, really, in some instances. But yeah, a lot of them aren't, they're not terrible. So
yep.
The gamer designs can be worse on some than others.
Hey Tim, I must ask you a question. When you show color checker results with the relevant color space triangle overlaid on the oval, it only covers a small amount of the oval. What does the oval represent, and will it ever be necessary to cover the whole spectrum? So this will probably be easiest with a visual representation. So we'll say goodbye to Monitor Steve for a moment. We'll put up one of those color checker or color space graphs so I can show you what I'm talking about. So the inner triangle that you see, the one that's highlighted, it's got all the color dots in it, that is the color space of the monitor, and that's dictated by the primaries of the monitor. As you might know, monitors use RGB subpixels, so red, green, and blue. And then, the points that those create in that overall color space diagram dictates the color space, and everything in between is a proportion of the red, green, and blue elements. The oval is all of the colors that could possibly exist. And what you'll see, not in this particular chart, but in different versions of this same CIE graph, the outer sort of curved part is actually the full pure colors illustrated in nanometers. So you can start from the red and it goes right around to the green up the top and then around back down to the blue. If you see points along that outer edge, those are like pure red at 500-600 nanometers or whatever it is, and then you'll see pure blue at like 400 nanometers. So what you see is that monitors can't actually show pure colors, which makes sense. So will it ever be necessary to cover that whole spectrum, as Steve has gone to sleep listening to my explanation here? Will it ever be necessary to cover the whole spectrum? Basically, it would be great if it could, but most natural colors that you see in the real world are not like way out near the pure end of like pure laser green, pure laser blue. And there's even, research that's been done where you can see an exact sort of color space that is very close to most natural colors that you see. So it'd be great to have all the colors, but the current color spaces that we have right now cover like 99% of colors you actually see in the real world, like the colors of leaves and the ocean and the sky and stuff. All that stuff's already covered. But if you wanted to show like exotic extreme lasers and cool stuff like that in like sci-fi, for example, then you'd need the whole spectrum covered. So maybe we'll see it eventually, but it's not really a key priority right now.
All right, we're going to hit pause there on the mix of Patreon/YouTube questions. Tim's thrown me off by doing that this time, so I have no idea where these are all coming from. But anyway, that was another great set of questions, and hopefully it was a good set of answers. Probably mine were, I don't know about Tim's. I'll let you guys judge that. And we do have a part 3 coming up, so that'll probably be on the channel a day after this one if all goes to plan.
Yep.
Which it usually does. But there's not too much more to say, really.
Yep, I'd say so.
Yeah, I'm getting used to being in here. It's kind of comfy. It's very spacious. I got plenty of room, nice temperature. It's pretty quiet.
Nice.
Not a bad chair. Yeah.
Hopefully that's what your new studio that you're building will be like. Very similar. Lots of space. Nice climate control in there. Should be good.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks guys for watching. Of course, if you do want to get more involved with the channel, support us directly, we have Floatplane and Patreon for that. So you'll get access to really cool stuff like live streams, which we've done today, but we'll do it again next month. We do it every month. Questions, you can do question stuff there on our Discord chat. The Discord chat's awesome. I can't believe how well that's grown, and really cool, fun community there. Great place if you want to ask questions or get involved. And behind the scenes content. And I think that's about everything.
Yep.
Behind the scenes content. Yeah, all right. We do stuff. Check it out if you're interested. If not, perfectly fine. You can just watch us waffle on and do what we do on the main channel.
Yeah,
that's always all right.
Well, at least I hope so. You never know.
I hope I'm not overselling it. All right, let's just wrap this up. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and we will see you again next time. But before we do, I'm your host, Steve.
I'm your host, Tim. See you.
And we will see you again next time.
Next time.